Five Nights at Freddy's Help Wanted 2 is just around the corner at the time of this video's release, and I have just a few concerns about this game and Steel Wool in general. Now, before I continue, I can't express enough how much of a fan I am of Steel Wool's FNAF games. I love Help Wanted 1, my favorite minigames being their take on FNAF 2, despite taking the withered animatronics except Foxy out, and Parts and Service. Security Breach is the FNAF game I play the most, with over 27 hours clocked in on my Steam library. That's not including my Bonnie Purple Nintendo Switch Lite before I sold it, which that version had over 48 hours clocked in. I have beat Security Breach at least 2 times, so to say I love Steel Wool's work would be an understatement. However, I am also a firm believer that those who love something the most should also give it the most criticism and feedback to make it better in the near future. So don't take me speaking my hesitations on this upcoming game as raining on everyone's parade. I just want Steel Wool and a franchise I hold so close to me to do the best they can. First thing that frustrates me is the timed exclusivity. I get it. Steel Wool made a deal with Sony and this is nothing new. When a Steel Wool FNAF game first comes out, it's exclusive only to PlayStation consoles and PC first. Then the other platforms get it later. This has been happening since Help Wanted 1. What makes Help Wanted 2 different is that there will be features only exclusive to the PS5 version. This means that, even if slightly, there will be separate platform versions of the game, something that should have been left behind in the mid-2000s. Other platforms will be missing game modes and features that only the PS5 VR2 will have, yet all copies of the game, no matter the platform, will be the same price. This means people on Xbox and PC, I highly doubt this will be ported to Nintendo Switch, will be paying for an inferior product. I don't mean this in a Sony Pony PlayStation quality is superior sort of way. I mean in the Sony is pulling in Epic Games and keeping the best things only to themselves so they don't have to compete sort of way. You might think this will get people to pony up, pun entirely intended, the cash and buy this game for the PS5, but I argue it will have the polar opposite effect. Let's say you're someone like me who doesn't own a PS5, but you really want to get this game day one. That means you will not only have to pay $70 for the game, but $500 for a PS5 and $550 for the VR2 headset. I'm sorry, but even if I had that kind of disposable income, $1,120 is not worth wasting on a console and headset I would use for only one game. And since I know the version of the game for my platform, the PC, will be missing features and thus inferior to a version that I would have to pay $1,120 for, can't stress that enough, yet will cost the same $70 price point, I might just skip out on the game altogether. I will admit this is a hypothetical scenario, but if you wanted the best argument for why console exclusives hurt the game industry summed up and tied in a neat little bow, well, there you go. Speaking of consoles, let's talk performance. You knew this was coming since I said I was a PC gamer. Look, I'ma be real with you. I don't really care about frame rates. Did you know the best way to play Security Breach on PC without any soft locking game breaking bugs is to edit the files so the game plays at 24 frames per second, aka the same frame rate the PS4 version plays at? Most PC gamers watching now want to crucify me on a wall for knowing I choose to play a game at 24 FPS on a gaming laptop that can run it at way above 60 frames. For me, as long as a game is not running at PowerPoint slideshow frame rates and doesn't require at least 60 FPS, like competitive games, to run, then I'm happy with whatever frame rate the developers want to run their games at. But I'm not everyone. There are people who want all games to run at least 60 frames per second on consoles, because that's what Sony and Microsoft promised with their current consoles. It's no secret that a lot of games on the PS5 and Xbox Series consoles only run at 30 FPS unless you switch over to performance mode. Sometimes you don't even get a choice. You're either stuck with quality or performance mode. I'm afraid this might happen with Help Wanted 2. They are going to release the game with a performance mode and a quality mode. This means you're either stuck with downgraded models and environments, but a buttery smooth frame rate, or you have the best looking models and environments of any FNAF VR game, but stuck at a jittery 30 frames per second. Have you ever tried playing a VR game at a jittery 30 frames per second? Let me tell you, it's the fastest way to get motion sickness. There's a reason why most VR games run at 60 FPS or higher. This is so the player has more control over the equipment, can refresh faster than the eye can see, and reduce the risk of motion sickness. This might mean that Steel Wool might release the game on PS5 only running at least 60 FPS. This means that something, somewhere, if not a lot of things, are going to be downgraded without even giving players a choice. This is really sad because the models for the characters in the trailers are some of the best I've ever seen, and it would suck if the models in the game didn't match the ones in the trailer until the PC version comes out. Well, on the subject of performance, let's talk glitches, because we all know Steel Wool's games upon day one are extremely buggy. For some reason, Steel Wool thinks that release days are meant for beta testing, and then a year or two later, through patches, we finally get the finished game we were promised on day one. Now, being fair, even though Help Wanted 1 was broken on release to the point of one of the mini-games not working at all, it was still mostly playable from beginning to end. It wasn't like Security Breach or its lackluster Apology DLC that everyone overhypes only because it's free and did a fake out with Roxanne Wolf. Ruin, that had so many game-breaking glitches, they were nearly unplayable from beginning to end. And this is coming from a guy who likes vanilla Security Breach. Yeah. I'm sure Help Wanted 2 is not going to be as broken as Security Breach or Ruin, but even if it's Steel Wool's most polished game on release, it's guaranteed that there are going to be a lot of bugs. I know you can't iron out every glitch and error in a video game. I'm not demanding Help Wanted 2 to be perfect on release. Mistakes are gonna happen. But a lot is riding on Steel Wool with Help Wanted 2. This is going to have to be either the most polished day one release with minimum glitches, or only have major game-breaking glitches that can cheese the mini-games and be disguised as exploits. After the release of Security Breach and Ruin, barely anyone takes Steel Wool seriously as game developers anymore. I hate to be so cut and dry about it, but the last major FNAF release really made them a laughingstock. Rushing out yet another completely broken entry in an important franchise that is as much of a household name as Five Nights at Freddy's will do so much worse than sink their reputation. It will also cost FNAF's reputation more than the confusing lore that included stuff from the books just to push said books did. Now that I brought up the lore, it's time for characters and settings. When I saw the first trailer and realized we were heading back to Sister Location, I was hyped. When I saw gameplay footage and saw that Moon was included, I was hyped, because he looks like he could fit in with the Funtime animatronics. When I heard Pizza Sim and its animatronics were included then were confirmed, I was hyped. Then I saw more trailers, gameplay, and the reveal of the Glamrox being included, and I was no longer hyped. In fact, I got quite upset. Don't get me wrong, I love the Glamrox. Glam Chick is easily my favorite Glamrock and in my top 10 favorites, and Roxy, I like that she actually has a personality that stands out from all the others, and her design is something I also enjoy and won't elaborate further on what that means. But why are they here? We're already dealing with Sister Location, Pizzeria Simulator, and possibly Ultimate Custom Night. Why throw Security Breach into the mix? When does this take place? Where does this take place? How does anyone who is still alive know about the scrap animatronics enough to include them in training software meant for Fazbear Entertainment employees? I know the lore for FNAF doesn't make any sense at this point, but is it too much to ask for Help Wanted 2 to stick to the setting of Sister Location and Pizza Sim? How do the Glamrocks fit in with the setting, and how do they mesh with the designs of the Funtime Scrap and Pizza Sim animatronics? We all know Steel Wool isn't going to bother answering any of these questions. Instead, they're going to create some unrelated story to the previous game, tossing a bunch of unfinished, barely started lore bits, then throw up their hands and tell the fans, get to work. Okay, that was a bit mean, but Steel Wool's FNAF really does feel like the anti-Mortal Kombat when it comes to lore and backstory. With Mortal Kombat, every time the developers get even a little nervous that something in the lore is starting to get shaky, they end up rebooting the entire universe. Steel Wool's take on Five Nights at Freddy's, on the contrary, feels like no matter how confusing things get, the devs and writers just keep piling stuff on, hoping for us to either half remember things, read the books while only half including stuff from them, not keep track of what technology does and doesn't exist in the game's universe, all the while forgetting that Fazbear Entertainment is such an incompetent company they went out of business and gone bankrupt at least twice. While we're still on the subject of characters, I can't be the only one who feels like there are going to be huge missed opportunities with the Glamrocs and other animatronics since they're here. Going back to Roxy and her unique design I like so much, why are we playing Pretty Princess Dream Makeover with her? I get it, Roxanne is obsessed with her looks, but wouldn't that mean that she would trust no one else but herself and highly trained professionals to take care of them? One of the things that FNAF lore actually confirms is Roxanne Wolf is a trained stylist. Even if this is only a virtual version, why would her AI volunteer to let new hires who don't know what in the holy hell they're doing to make her look like a total clown? Shouldn't she be standing next to and training us, since she has the experience while Circus Baby is the one in the chair? You could even still have Roxy jump scare us to death for not following her instructions, or make us guess which one will kill us if we fail, if she is the one training us. I'm even willing to bet my life Marta Savek, I'm sorry if I butchered your name, would love to do the voice work and have fans tell her how much they loved getting to spend one-on-one time and talk with Roxy, even if she was mean-mugging and threatening to virtual kill them if they screwed up the entire time. But you know what actually comes to my mind when I think of Roxanne? I can't really tell you what comes to my mind first because that was a terrible joke and we're moving on. The first thing that comes to my mind is not her being a stylist or getting a makeover. It's cars, racing, competition, a girl who isn't afraid of getting some dirt under her claws. Looking at her room in Security Breach, and especially Roxy Raceway, should have laid the blueprint for what kind of mini games Roxy got. We should be racing her one-on-one with that racetrack. She should be showing us how to fix a go-kart. There are bumper cars in Help Wanted too, but I highly doubt we'll be playing bumper cars against Roxy and or the others. Hell, I would even take a Dance Dance Revolution ripoff minigame with Roxy, where she kills you if she wins just to add some silly fun to this game. But no, instead, she's strapped to a chair while we make her look like a clown. And I don't even think she has any voice lines in this game that aren't reused so that she can berate us while we ruin her face. As much as FNAF is a horror franchise, it's also mostly a gaming one. The minigames should be fun so that if the players aren't scared, they're at least enjoying themselves. How cool would it be to make a giant pizza with Glamrock Chica, play Gator Golf against Monty, sing karaoke with Glamrock Freddy and a whole army of Freddys made up of each version from over the years, make ice cream for Circus Baby, try to dance ballet and keep up with Ballora. I think you get the point. A mix of silly, fun minigames that really tell you more about the animatronics and their personalities with a small dose of horror in them. Like, you could have a minigame where you act out a story Funtime Freddy is telling with Bon Bon on stage, using poses, and if he didn't like your performance, he kills you either with his or Bon Bon's jump scare. You could recreate the 8-bit minigames from FNAF 3 with Help Wanted 2's graphics and models. Hell, you could even recreate some of the moments from Security Breach. Monty's boss fight, battling blind Roxy, escaping shattered Chica. I know some of these minigames I came up with, off the top of my head by the way, would require a VR headset or a microphone to play, and Steel Wool wants to make most of the minigames playable without a VR headset. But you could just have the mini games that require the VR headset and or microphone to be grayed out and locked until the appropriate hardware is connected. This would actually encourage players to buy a VR headset to play those games, and best of all, it wouldn't require it wouldn't be further locked behind a $400 to $500 paywall. Or you could still make these more personality-inspired silly-esque minigames that work both in VR and flat screen mode. Having minigames that make the animatronics more charming and fun to be with the overlooming threat of being jump scared, would most likely be the sole reason a lot of people, especially kids who will ask this on Christmas, will play and keep coming back to this game. Let's actually get creative here. Tell me what mini games you came up with that would fit the animatronics personalities that you would want to be in Help Wanted 2 in the comments below. The second last thing I want to talk about is how in Dako's demo, the animatronics jump scared you even if you successfully completed the mini games. I really hope that was just in the demo made for Dako, because if it's not, all I can say is, really, Steel Wool? Really? You don't get a choice in being jump scared? Let me tell you, if that's in the final game, that's going to kill most people's enthusiasm for wanting to continue playing the game. Sometimes all it takes is for one little thing to sink an entire game, and for Help Wanted 2, it will be this. Jump scares are punishments for players who either didn't survive the night or didn't do something right. The reason why jump scares are so iconic with FNAF is because they let you know you did something wrong. Sure, sometimes jump scares were unavoidable, like in FNAF 3, but Scott Cawthon made damn sure that there was a justification for them happening. Even then, a lot of people didn't like them. Why are there jump scares after every minigame regardless if you fail or succeed? Is it for the blind YouTube playthroughs by the YouTubers who will buy and play this day one? If that's the case, even those YouTubers will catch on right away and start lamenting and criticizing them after every minigame. Game critics will complain about it, bringing the game's score down. Not that review scores are that important to a game's enjoyment. And modders will make a mod removing them after you succeed at the minigames. Mark my words, it will get old really fast, and the jump scares will not only lose their fear factor, but their charm. The last thing I want to say is not really about Help Wanted 2, but Steel Wool themselves. They seem to really want to play it safe after what happened with Security Breach and had to make the free apology DLC ruin. I wouldn't be surprised if the next game to come out after Help Wanted 2 was Help Wanted 3. But I don't want a Help Wanted 3. Because I don't want Steel Wool to keep playing it safe. I don't want to witness Five Nights at Freddy's becoming Mario Party with jump scares. There's a reason why Scott Cawthon passed the torch to Steel Wool after he retired from game development. Obviously, the reputation Security Breach received didn't lose enough sales for Scott to yank the license away from them, so clearly there's enough confidence left in them that they can still make great games. I also believe they can not only still make great FNAF games, but different FNAF games that expand the brand's horizon. They also shouldn't have to stick to just making horror games. Brands survive by reaching new audiences while staying familiar to those already in the loop. I would love to play a fully fledged Roxy Raceway game where Roxanne is the host, narrator, and final boss who can see through walls and find shortcuts that aren't obvious to players unless they're really looking. A game that's somewhere between Crash Team Racing Nitro Fueled and Mario Kart 8. I know, I'm a hypocrite. I said I didn't want FNAF turning into Mario Party with jump scares, yet I'm advocating for a Mario Kart game with FNAF characters and courses. But tell me you wouldn't want a racing game where you get to pick your favorite animatronic with a car themed after them and race through tracks themed after each game. I personally would race as Springtrap because, well, duh. I would love to see a fully fledged Monty Gator golf game, a fast-paced Phaser Blast first-person shooter style game where you use non-lethal weapons on the animatronics to stun them with different effects as you skate by completing each objective, but they can still get the jump scare on you if they get the jump on you. What about a sequel or successor to FNAF World or even Security Breach itself? Yeah, those games didn't do too well the first time around, but there are fans who still want continuations of those titles, and now you know what works and what doesn't this time around. Could you imagine a Security Breach sequel where the animatronics act like the xenomorph from Alien Isolation, and you don't know when they'll show up because they have free roam of the entire place, but you can only run and hide when they do? And the scariest part? Unlike in Alien Isolation where there's only one, there are at least 4 big bastards that can show up at any time and take you by surprise. I'm getting shivers down my spine just thinking of a game like that. You know what? I don't think this will ever happen unless someone makes it as a fan game. But as a fan of fighting games, I would fall in love with a non-canon spin-off where all the animatronics get together and beat the living stuffing out of each other. Rock'em Sock'em Robot style with flashy moves and everything. I honestly think Steel Wool should work with fan creators, or Scott Cawthon should open up a studio made up of fan creators who have made popular and trusted fan games with no truly terrible reputations, who can focus on making a variety of creative official games that reach all kinds of different audiences but never strays too far from the Fazbear universe. I really want Help Wanted 2 to be a fantastic game. And who knows, maybe all the things I want to be in it will be there. Maybe it will be the best damn FNAF game ever made. I can only hope, but I want to stay realistically and cautiously optimistic. If anyone from Steel Wool is watching this and you're not too upset by what I said earlier, I just want to personally tell you to do the best you can. I know making games isn't easy. I can tell you from my own failed experiences. And after Help Wanted 2 is released and then fully patched within the next 2 years, I hope the next FNAF game from you all is something truly unexpected and takes the entire community by surprise. In a good way. All I'm asking is for a little variety and genre mixing. But as I said earlier, I'm not everyone. Thanks for making it this far, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Just as a public disclaimer, I know I made a lot of jokes about Roxanne Wolf's looks throughout the video, but I want to reassure everyone that was just for comedy. I want to make it absolutely sparkling crystal clear that I am not a furry or a Roxy well, hot damn.